Alright, how's everyone doing today? Can you all hear me? Hope you all are doing well. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while because I care a lot about it despite it being my first attempt at something similar to a just chatting stream. This is kind of just going to be some, off the cuff, no real rehearsal or script, so again, I make no real promises on the quality or how things turn out, but I hope maybe you can take something away from this or there's something you'll learn. But without further ado, let's begin. So for me, mental health is something that I care deeply about because it's something that affects me as well personally. I will be the first to admit that I'm not always in the best of mental health states, but regardless, I do believe in wanting to better one's mental health and work on improving oneself and being cognizant of it, I suppose. And one of the ways that I was able to do this was through a thing in the military called MRT, which I think is like Master Resiliency Training. Not everything I necessarily agree with, but there are some good takeaways I feel, and I hope that you feel the same way. Because, of course, everyone is built differently. They have their own quirks and different things, right, that make us all individual and unique. And when it comes to mental health, a healthy mind is a healthy body. If you're when you're not feeling well in the mind, the body will follow, and vice versa, generally. So let's get into what MRT is. Oh, I did not realize chat would be. Oh, let's move chat there today. How about that? All right, so this is MRT, or Master Resiliency Training. Hopefully it's zoomed in enough that you can kind of see what's going on there, or maybe not. So there are different competencies, but I'm going to skim over that. Goal setting, I think almost everyone has set a goal before and pursued it. And hello, Brookie. I appreciate you being here. Hope you have a good time listening. So MRT breaks down goal settings into 7 steps, right? Step 1 is to define your goal, right? Almost everyone usually can. But the big thing is generally self-awareness, right? Step 2, knowing where you are right now. Being able to identify where you want to be and where you are. Where you need to develop to reach that place. And making a plan that includes various steps and taking regular action against those steps. And being able to monitor and be realistic about your steps to get there. Some of us are more inclined to be self-aware and to one's detriment or to the positive side, I'd say. Where one might feel as though they're not too realistic, but too down on themselves, where they might feel like they have a lot more steps that they need to take to achieve their goal, whereas some may feel as though they're way closer to achieving that goal than they may already be. But the big thing is being able to truly identify, where am I, where do I want to be, and what steps do I need to take to get there. And one of the things, right, is for me is like helplessness or sometimes depression. But it's that constant action of being able to tell myself, I did this today and I'm that much closer to my goal, that can help me move forward and see kind of where I'm at, right? But moving on. So one of the biggest concepts that I think that I like to take away from this is one called Hunt the Good Stuff, or HTGS, but Hunt the Good Stuff, right? A lot of us, myself included, have this thing called the negativity bias. The negativity bias is where we are more prone to be affected by and notice the negative things in our lives than the positive things. So that can be like, oh, my car broke down today, or like I arrived at work late, or, someone's being more aggressive, or this bad thing happened. And due to that, we're less likely to notice the good things that happen. That can be like something as simple as, oh, my favorite song played on the radio, or I had a nice dream, or like I particularly liked how my breakfast tasted this morning. It's very small things that all bottle up to ultimately become, something that could potentially counter those negative events. But a being able to identify that and use it to counter that negativity bias can kind of help stabilize one's mental health and emotions. And the biggest thing is being able to, identify that the world's not truly just negative. There are good things that happen and good things to take away. So this one says record 3 things each day. That can be whatever works for you, right? For me, I just take account of it mentally, but I do take note and answer the questions that it follows, which is why this good thing happened, what this good thing means to you, what you can do tomorrow to enable more of this good thing, and what ways you or others contribute to this good thing, right? So, like, yesterday, I had a good dinner, right? So, why it happened, I took time out of my day to plan and prepare that dinner and took us a little bit more time. What it means to me, it means good tasting food. It helps me stabilize my emotions and think less on the negative things. What I can do tomorrow to enable more of this good thing, which is, for me, it could be doing the same thing or maybe something different. Also, thank you for grabbing your stew today. Error page not found. And then ways you or others contribute to this good thing, right? So it's not only me. I have to think about how others contribute to it too, right? My friends, help me out in ways that may or may not always be noticed, right? Like they interact with my mental health whether I want them to or not. Them communicating with me, telling me how they feel, how they care about me or don't. Those will all inadvertently affect my health and if I'm willing to do this certain thing, right? So I have to be thankful of the friends who are there for me, even implicitly in something as simple as like me making my own food, that they were able to, help talk to me and that I felt good enough for that day that I was able to do that, right? And it's noticing those small things and how they all accumulate together to truly make a good thing happen, right? And like with everything else, being able to be thankful for those things, at least for me, is able to help me with my mental health. And yeah, Brookie, regulating is a difficult task, but we all push ourselves to a point where we can I hopefully wish that we can push each other forward and, uh, accelerate each other's well being. Another thing that comes in that realm of self awareness is ATC, which is the activating event, thoughts, and consequences. So it's really just being able to identify one's thoughts about an event and the consequences of those thoughts, right? So let's say like you get cut off in traffic, right? That being cut off was the activating event. But now, what are the thoughts that you have about that event, and what are the consequences of those events, right? So on the right side, we have thought themes, right? Probably would be associated with maybe like danger or trespass, which can correlate with anxiety or agitation or anger and aggression. So you might go and just be like feel fearful that this person was aggressively driving, or you may be angry that they cut you off. But being able to identify, hey, this thing happened, this is what I thought about it, and this is why I thought about it, and this is how it's going to affect me right now, is a good way of being able to take a step back from your own thoughts and look at them from a more objective point of view, right? So, um, there are many other thought themes in there, right? Like loss is correlated with sadness and withdrawal, danger is anxiety, agitation, trespass is anger and aggression, inflicting harm is guilt, apologizing, negative comparison is embarrassment or hiding, positive contribution is pride or sharing, appreciating what you have received, maybe gratitude, giving thanks, and a positive future may be like hope, right? So being able to identify, especially in the heat of the moment, right? It's really hard. Like, we can theorize all day about what you should do and what you should think, but in reality, it's really about in that heat of the moment what one's thoughts are, right? In the heat of the moment, that you get cut off, you're not thinking, "Oh, this is the event that happened. This is how I think about it." But at least it's best to do it in the heat of the moment so that you can identify. Okay, so I felt that I was trespassed, and this person trespassed into my zone, but I can identify that this is how I feel about it, and I can identify that these emotions may cause me to do something unfavorable. So let's try and think about this a different way, or at least be cognizant of our heightened emotions. And that can help with one's mental health, being able to truly identify, because some things, sometimes you just feel sad, but it really takes time to sit back and say, okay, I'm sad. Why? What's happened? Where do I feel like I'm doing something that, or I'm not doing something that would make me feel sad? Being able to identify that and being able to put a plan into action to, in theory, be able to at least mitigate that sadness, right? I'm sad because I don't feel like I'm going anywhere in life. Okay, well, why do I feel like I'm not going anywhere in life? Well, I don't feel like I have any forward motion at work. Okay, so if we dumb it down to work, what would make us feel like we're moving forward in work then? A promotion? Maybe moving to a different career field? Or, I wish I had more friends. Okay, I'm feeling lonely. How do we make a plan to address that? Um, we could attend more social events. We could go to places that we could potentially meet friends. We can be more active online potentially and make more online friends. But being able to identify those those longer term feelings and make a plan about it can generally, in my opinion, help a little bit with how you feel about certain things. Moving on, next is energy management, right? Biggest thing on this one is basically just deliberate breathing, right? And as much as everyone, jokes about the yoga breathing and, how whenever something happens to just take deep breaths, it really does help. It helps take your mind off of the event as you're focusing on your breathing and controlling that breathing. Sometimes, especially personally for me at night, when I'm having bad thoughts, or at least thoughts that I'm not super pleasant about, first I focus on breathing, and then I take some time to think about, okay, so that bad thought occurred to me. Why did I have that bad thought? What was my reaction to that thought? Was it embarrassment over something I did when I was in like middle school? Was it anger at like how, someone approached me or talked to me? Okay, and why am I thinking about this, and how can I change that in the future? And hey, Voxel, thank you for swinging by. And yeah, Brookie. So being able to take those thoughts, right, and being able to truly think about why we have these thoughts and to make a way so that our mind can accept and what's the word, like, accept that it happened and that we will be better about it so that it doesn't haunt us as much, I suppose. Um, and that's the thing, right? Is that it's a very human response. It's a way of protecting ourselves, as in this caused us harm in the past to us mentally, so we keep a memory of it so that we don't get hurt in the future by it. But a way to help cope with that may be to make a plan through it, or be able to truly identify what happened, how we think about it, and how we move on. So the next one, right, is avoiding thinking traps. This is something I can sometimes struggle with, and maybe you can relate. It's being able to identify and correct counterproductive patterns in thinking through use of mental cues and critical questions. Basically, think about something that happened and try to be as objective as possible about it, right? So in this case, one of the examples is jumping to conclusions, right? Oh, they hate me because they avoided me. All right, what's the evidence that they hate me? They avoided me at lunch today, but has this been a reoccurring pattern? Have there been other instances where I was able to interact with them? How has my interaction with them changed from now to today? What evidence do I have that supports this theory I have, and what evidence do I have that denies this theory I might have? And which one do I place greater hold in, right? And, sometimes we have a tendency to want to protect ourselves, right? Which may result in this, they hate me because we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to make ourselves vulnerable or put ourselves at risk with someone we don't know. And that can be how, we have self-defensive mechanisms that are similar to that jumping to conclusions. Another one that is listed as mind reading, right? Did we make the assumption, right? They hate me? Or did we speak up? Did I express myself? Did I ask for information? Did I say, hey, I noticed you avoiding me. Are we okay? Do you not like me? Are we having issues? Did we just assume that we could read their mind based on what happened? Or did we actually attempt to communicate? And was that attempt at communication shut down, right? So that's back to that evidence. Do we have the evidence that backs up our theory? Or do we have evidence that goes against our theory? Another one is me, something I have occasionally have trouble with, which is trying to blame yourself for everything, right? So, that same hypothetical situation, right? This person avoiding me. Oh, it's all my fault that they're avoiding me because, I did this thing and that made them never want to talk to me again. Well, is that truly true? Let's look outward. Were there other things that occurred that may have led to this situation? Be able to attribute events to their actual correlating causes, right? And being able to say, okay, this thing happened, but I was not the sole person at fault. There were these different circumstances that ended up causing us to become where we were. And being able to articulate what really caused this event and being a bit more neutral and natural about how we identify and rationalize the event, right? And thank you, Voxel. And yeah, it's the irrational thoughts, right? We have a tendency to want to um, immediately diagnose an event, right? This person didn't talk to me at lunch; they must hate me, and it's all my fault. And and I'm gonna read their mind and assume that because they walked away from me, right? So we have the activating events, but we have to be able to rationalize the causes and the effects and how we're really thinking about the situation if we're being rational about it, right? So another one, right, is them, the opposite of me. So, oh no, it's always their fault, right? It's always someone else. It's never my fault, right? Be a bit more objective, right? Look inward. Usually, while you're not always completely at fault, you're usually not completely blameless, or you're not 0% of the cause either. That doesn't necessarily mean that at fault, right? That it was a bad thing that happened, but to say that you were not a process of the cause at all is also usually a harmful way of thinking because you have those people in your life, right? Everything is always someone else's fault. It's never my fault. It's their fault. And those people typically have a very hard time improving themselves because there's no introspection, right? No way of, okay, how did I contribute to this event? How did others? And being a bit more rational and fair to everything and everyone that was a part of this event. So a big thing is combating those thoughts and being able to truly be objective and identify how this event and thought came to be through everything that happened, right? Because, yeah, like Voxel says, it's not black and white. It's various shades of gray. And, this happened, but this is how I feel about it. This is how others feel about it. And being able to articulate is difficult, right? Because a lot of times as humans, we want to just simplify it. It's black and white. I hate him, they hate us. It's that joke, right? The person you hate the most just made a great point. Um, that people aren't black and white, and that events similarly aren't like that. So you have to be able to think, hey, this happened, and why do I think about this? What are we thinking? Am I falling into any traps? Am I looking at the whole picture? Things like that. And yeah, and like Vox says, it's a big part to be able to be introspective and use that to improve ourselves and be able to use that to look into the future, right? The biggest way, I think, mentally is identify where you're at now and do introspection so that you can identify where you want to be, right? And there's no such thing as an end to improvement. I truly believe that we can always continue improving and bettering ourselves in some way or another, including mentally. So another one that I've seen people fall into, right? Always, always, always. Oh, this always happens. I can't change it. There's nothing in my power. You know, every time I go to work, it's always a shit show or it's always bad. Okay, let's take a step back, right? Is it truly always like this? Or are we simply it happens enough that our brain has automatically transformed it into always happening? Are we contributing to it at all? Are we doing anything to change it potentially? Have we looked into how this event, can be manipulated by us? Um, and yeah, Brookie, I mean, we're all human, right? We're not perfect, but being able to work on ourselves and identify and be introspective, right? I think is one of the best parts about being human. Um, and typically, we all know at least one of these people that do these things. But being able to identify, hey, we're doing this. Why are we doing this? Let's take a step back, look at this again, and reapproach this, right? And right, um, biggest thing is to never give up. Keep pushing, keep trying, and like Batman Begins, right? Alfred, why do we fall down, Master Wayne? It's that we pick ourselves up, right? It's about being able to pick ourselves up, being able to look at ourselves and be a better person than the one we were yesterday. And that's awesome, Brookie. Um, yeah, and one of the final ones is everything, 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 right? Oh, everything's terrible, everything's bad. Okay, let's break it down. Is everything truly terrible, or are we just generalizing? Are there a couple good things in our lives? Are there a couple bad things? Are we allowing a tiny part to take over a giant part of our lives, or are we being more realistic about the faults of each bit, right? And yeah, like Xander says, there's something we can do to improve ourselves, even if it's in the simplest form. Yep. And it's always about, constant improvement, constant change, right? Not becoming sedimentary and not regressing. Being able to look forward and move forward, and being able to be objective about ourselves and who and where we want to be. So next is detecting icebergs, right? Identify and evaluate core beliefs and core values that fuel out of proportion emotions and reactions. Use the what questions in any order to help identify the iceberg. What is the most upsetting part of that for me? What does that mean to me? What is the worst part of that for me? Assuming that is true, what about that is so upsetting to me, right? So we're crashing out, we're absolutely fuming. Okay, let's take a step back. What is the most upsetting thing about that thing that happened? Why is that thing so upsetting to me? And is it really or should it be that upsetting to me? And is there anything I can do to change that, right? So once you've identified your iceberg, think about whether you still believe and value this iceberg and whether or not the iceberg is overly rigid in some situations, right? Are we being flexible? Like, are we crashing out because they ignored us at work and we're super extroverted? Can we be flexible in this? Or vice versa? Are we crashing out because one of our extrovert compatriots are really pushing us to try and talk to the group, right? Can we be flexible in this? Can we meet a compromise? Or is this a value that we are willing to die on this hill for? Which, if that's you, you know what? Fair. Some people are like that. But being able to identify and pick and choose the hills you're willing to die on, is a part of you and who you are. But sometimes a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of compromise goes a long way. Whether that iceberg is getting in your way in some situations, and what specific actions you would take if you want to change your iceberg, right? So, is this thing that I'm crashing out over, is this iceberg something that's constantly getting in my way? Is it negatively affecting me? Can I change this? Why is this a core part of my value system? Thinking about it, right? So thinking about that with psychology, the nature versus nurture argument. Was I grown up in such a way that this has become a core part of my personality and ethics? Usually, yes. Most people aren't born with a set of ethics, though, again, that's still up for scientific debate. But usually we're raised in such a way that we formulate our personality, our values. And so being able to identify, okay, what part of my childhood or what part of my life made me gain this value and hold on to it like I do. So one of my things is being grateful for the little things. That's one of the things I try and value. Because I grew up poor, I didn't get many things in life. So even getting one, well, yeah, poverty is a bit of a stretch, but not rich, right? Even getting one new game for me was a big deal. And being able to be thankful for the little things like, oh, I was able to eat, something delicious today, or I sang a particularly nice song on the way home in my car, or hey, today everything didn't blow up at work. That's one of my core values, and it developed over time through my childhood and the things I experienced. And I'm sure the rest of you have something like that, a core value. But also being able to identify, okay, this is one of my core values and this is how it came to be, can really help in determining that iceberg. What you can do to change your emotions or reactions to take these types of situations go better for yourself and others. Yeah. So maybe it was really upsetting for you, right? But was the situation and the occasion appropriate for that level, right? Even if I believe in this value and someone violated it, making me feel like extremely frustrated or upset about it. Is it the time and place? No, we can maybe talk about this after the event and we can talk privately. Or is this a person I want to waste my time and energy on? No. Okay, well, we'll let them do whatever they do and we'll simply step back, let them talk about whatever they do and remove ourselves from that situation. um, or is it a good friend that just said something absolutely out of pocket and you're familiar with them? Usually appropriate to be able to, at least with a real friend, hey man, that's totally not cool, let's talk about this, and be a little upset at them, right? But being able to understand that context and whether it was the right situation to with the right reaction is another big part, right? Whether there's a more direct conversation you need to have with someone and what right, which is the last thing. Problem solving. I mean, everyone knows how to problem solve, but this is a little different in context. It is being able to identify, you know, so we talked about, everything's going wrong. Let's identify how to solve that problem, right? What's the problem we're trying to solve? What caused the problem? What'd you miss? What's the evidence that each factor contributed to the problem? What really caused the problem, and what can you do about it? And I think a lot of people get hung up on step 4 and step 6, which is the evidence and what we can do about it. We can say, okay, this, and this is what's contributing to that problem. But do we really have evidence that backs up that all those things are causing the problem? Is there any tests we can do to prove that that thing is causing the problem? Or do we have to work based off assumptions, right? And then some people, they're not so good at being able to identify what they can do about it in either way. Either in that it's a problem that they really can't do much or anything about, and then they put everything of themselves into it, so they lose themselves in trying to solve that unsolvable problem and lose themselves and become frustrated. And then you have the other side, which is that it's a not, well, generally fairly easy problem to solve, but they're so lost in that the problem's happening and they feel as though they're powerless that they don't accomplish solving that problem either. So when you solving that problem and being really able to identify and work out your process is a big part for truly solving those issues that you may have that may affect your mental health, right? But it's very, like I keep saying, it's very important to be able to be objective about your situation and problems. And when it comes down to it, sometimes I enlist the help of others. I'm biased towards my own situations, obviously. So sometimes I need a third party to be like, hey, okay, here's a situation. And remember, I'm talking from my own point of view, so I may have biases. And here's what I think is happening. Here's what I think I should do about it. And here's what I want to do. What do you think about that? Oh, I don't think that's a good idea because this, and oh, I didn't really think about it like that. Or, yeah, I agree, blah, blah, blah. Okay, can you think of anything I might be missing potentially? And being able to really talk about it with other people can help you work out better plans potentially. Because the biggest thing is trying to be objective, right? And it's one of the hardest things is being objective to yourself about yourself, right? Another big one is putting it in perspective, right? So when you're crashing out and having catastrophic thinking, put it in perspective, right? What was the activating event? Capture the worst case thoughts and ask, then what happens or what else, right? So, a person's ignoring us at work. What's the absolute worst case that happens? Oh, we can't get something done without them, or they hate us now and it'll be hard to work with them. Okay, sure. Generate best case thoughts and ask, and then what happens? Oh, they're just they're having a rough day, or they just don't want to talk with me today, or they just want to be left alone today. And then what else? Identify most likely outcomes. Probably somewhere in between. It could be either or. So let's ask and figure it out, and then develop a plan for dealing with most likely outcomes. Okay. So if they don't want anything to deal with us, all right. Well, we don't need to deal with them. Or if they just want to be left alone for today, we can either leave them alone, try and help them out if they were a friend previously. But big thing in that case is communication, as well as being able to identify, being able to say, okay, this is the event we're crashing out on. What's the absolute worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And let's be realistic. What's the most likely thing, right? I think there are people, myself included, who fixate so much on the worst case that we have a hard time making up the best case and the most realistic, right? And the most likely, I suppose. But being able to identify that, okay, I'm making the absolute worst case scenario in my head. Let's rewind. Let's think about what the best case scenario is, and let's be honest, what's realistically going to happen. And then being able to make a plan for the most realistic things, right? Or at least having a plan for each thing can help reduce anxiety for not having a solution, potentially. So mental games, right? So that can be something like the breathing I was talking about earlier, or as the symbol is, chess. Anything that requires your full attention, is hard and fun, and can be done within a few minutes. Being able to take your mind off of the situation in the heat of the moment, do something that requires you to divert your full attention, and then being able to come back to it with a refreshed mind can sometimes change your perspective on the entire situation. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing is that, right? Perspective. Being able to identify where you are and what the situation truly is for what it is, and not what you may initially believe it is. And then real-time resilience. Shut down counterproductive thinking to enable greater concentration and focus on the task at hand. So it gives you a bunch of sentence starters, right? That can fight back against counterproductive thoughts with these sentence starters. Well, that's not completely true because, and what evidence do you have that it's not necessarily true? A more optimistic way of seeing this is, and being able to redefine the situation with a more optimistic lens, the most likely implication is this, and I can this. So being able to see it in a more neutral perspective. And those are the biggest things, right? Being able to have those thoughts in your head that may be negative, but being able to sit down with yourself and say, okay, do I have any evidence that counteracts this, right? This isn't completely true and not what I think it is because of this. Or, a more optimistic way of looking at my situation could be this, And being able to put it in perspective is a big thing. Avoid the most common pitfalls, dismissing the grain of truth. Something that I admittedly do quite often. Minimizing the situation. Oh, it's not really that big a deal. It's not really affecting me. Be honest with yourself. Is it? Is it something you need to devote time to resolve? Rationalizing or excusing one's contribution to a problem. Oh, my friend wasn't really involved, so it's not really his fault. Or, oh, it's not really my fault, that happened and this happened, so, it's not really my fault, right? And weak responses. Do I truly have a good response that is able to not conclude but resolve my feelings about this matter? or push it in such a way that's productive rather than being reductive, right? Identifying character strengths in self and others. Identify character strengths in yourself and others to build on the best of yourself and the best of others. This is about looking at yourself and others and being able to appreciate yourself and other people, right? These are some character strengths made by a psychological doctor, which you may or may not agree with. Like I said, this whole thing, there are certain parts I agree with, some parts I don't. Maybe you can find something that you agree with, but I just hope that there's something you can take away from this that might help you. So some of them for him are appreciation of beauty and excellence, bravery, capacity to love, caution, prudence, teamwork, creativity, curiosity, fairness, forgiveness, gratitude, honesty, hope, humor, perseverance, judgment, critical thinking, kindness, leadership, etc., etc., right? Identify what's good about you and what's good about others. Be able to look at the bright side, right? What do I like about this person? What do I like about myself? One of the hardest things I would probably argue that there is to do is to be able to love oneself and be able to identify one's own strengths and weaknesses. So, think about that. What are your strengths? And be able to see them in others too, and that might help with communication. This is about leadership, so probably skip that. Assertive communication. This is something that maybe some might have trouble with. I would say sometimes, but it's just a model that you might be able to use in the future if you have a problem that you want resolved with someone else. And they call it the ideal model because, IDEAL. Identify and understand the problem. Describe the problem objectively. Express your concerns and how you feel. Ask the other person for his/her perspective and ask for reasonable change. And then list the positive outcomes that occur if the person makes the agreed upon change. So, hey, I notice you've been ignoring me. To me, it seems that, you don't want to talk to me, but it could be something else. I don't like it because it makes me feel like I'm potentially being ignored, or that you don't like me anymore. What's your perspective on this? And do you think you can talk to me again if it's just a bad day? And if you do, we can become friends again, talk more in the future, blah, blah, blah. So we've done this outline to communicate our thoughts to this other person, hypothetically. And hopefully they come back with a positive response that allows us to either resolve this conflict or to at least be able to look for a compromise or identify the conflict if we're not so sure. Finally, effective praise and active constructive responding. So this is about how you talk with friends, or can be about how you talk with friends or other people, right? They want people to be active constructive, and to some extent I'm inclined to agree. So these are when someone tells you about something, right? So like, hey, I just got a promotion at work, or, my streaming's popping off, or I had a raid. Be a joy multiplier, right? Show authentic interest, elaborates the experience, and it elaborates the experience. Oh man, that's awesome. Tell me more about it. Show authentic interest. An active, destructive one, on the other hand, would be a joy thief, right? Squashing the event. Oh yeah, nah, I had a bigger raid. It's not that big a deal. Or, why are you talking about that? That's not really that important. It squashes the event, and it makes a negative focus on the event. On the other hand, we have the constructive passive, which is the conversation killer, which is quiet, understated support, and it fizzles out. Like, yeah, that's nice, man. And that can usually kill the conversation. And then we have the passive destruction, which is the conversation hijacker, which ignores the event and changes it to another. Oh, yeah, actually, well, I was playing basketball the other day, and then this thing happened. Completely ignored the initial event, showed that you don't care, and it reduced the joy, right? Being able to multiply the joy of others can help multiply the joy in yourselves. So being able to identify how others are responding to you, as well as how you respond to others, can change how you interpret and see interpersonal relationships, right? How do people talk to you and how do you talk to others? Being able to internalize that and kind of have a basis can maybe help. But those are all the overviews of just the MRT that I learned in the Army. I hope you were able to learn something and maybe be a bit more resilient. Uh, do any of you have any stories you'd like to share, or I guess I can share some of mine? Although I feel like I kind of did in the middle, right? Like, uh, being able to put this into practice for me is has been like biggest thing has been that I feel like I've been a bit more objective with my thoughts, being able to stop myself, say, "Hey, I feel like this," and then, "Okay, why do I feel like this?" Well, this thing happened. Okay, and why did this thing happening result in me thinking this way? Okay, let's break it down. This person did this, and I like them or I don't like them, and then the event was good or bad, which resulted in my current feelings about it. Okay, can we change anything about it? Yes? Okay, let's make a plan to change something about it. Or no? Okay. How can we do something that might change how we feel about it then? Can we cheer the person up or, change something that we do to take our mind off of it? Can we do something? Being able to identify an issue I have or a thought I have and how I want to tackle it has been the biggest way that this has changed me. But yeah. Sorry, this was a bit off the cuff. I didn't really have a speech rehearsed or anything, but I just want to talk about, the importance of mental health, some of the ways that I learned to be a bit more resilient in the army, and how it's affected me. And yeah. Thank you, Xander. I appreciate it. But that's all I really got today. I can either end stream or I guess we can move on to a game potentially. What are you all feeling? Should I call it a day or should we move on to a game? That's all I really got, if I'm gonna be honest. Also, in hindsight, I should probably get some music or something going. Um, well, communication listening is a important skill and tool set that more people need to pick on. Yeah, that's the thing, right? And I think that communication is definitely one of those things where it's really built on experience. We can share this theory all day to each other, but at the end of the day, it's all about how you use it in real life and how often you use it. Like riding a bicycle, it's easier the more you do it. You can learn how to ride a bike through books and, tutorials, and it might help you for your first time, but ultimately when you're on that bike, you have to sink or swim and get used to the pedals or lest you fall over. And that's one of the things I think is well, not to get too focused on drama or anything, right? But there's been a few situations, at least that I've seen the VTubing scene, where it really feels like a lot of things could have been settled if people had just communicated more effectively with each other. And yeah, the listening side is one of the hardest parts where it's really easy to hear yourself talk, ironically. I know I'm talking to myself and all of you. But it's a lot harder to listen, think about it, and, internalize it and return it. Especially if, you're a bit fidgety or a bit uninterested. But being able to, show authentic interest in people you care about and being able to have a good conversation through both communicating and listening is what leads to strong relationships. Not only romantically, but with friends, right? Like my best friend Eddie, we're able to sit down and say, okay, hey, this thing happened. and we both understand each other well enough, right? We've established, okay, he's my best friend, so I'm able to talk to him about these things without being judged, but also he knows that because he's my best friend, that his input is valued and that he is able to give me negative responses and that I will listen and hear him out. And being able to understand, okay, here's my current relationship with this person, here's where I stand, here's where I can communicate with them, or here's the best way that I can tell them this, right? Like there are some people who are just like, you're in the wrong, right? But there are better ways that you can say that you're wrong, right? You can talk to them, be a bit more, what's the word? Not civil, but be more reserved in the approach, I suppose, is one way to look at it. Being able to say, hey, I I I don't this was good, but here's how you could potentially do it better, or if it's just straight bad. Hey, I didn't really appreciate this. Do you think you could do it this way instead next time? There's better ways than just saying you're wrong, everything you stand for is wrong, and I don't like you, right? Um and yeah, I appreciate that, Galaxy. Well, it came from this was originally made by some psychologists, so I can totally see it being a bit therapy-esque. But the big thing is, right, be able to identify your thoughts, communicate those thoughts, and forge stronger relationships with the people around you. In any case, I think today we'll just call it there. We'll look for someone else to raid out to, and we'll just call it a day. I appreciate you all for being here. Seriously, I'm really glad to have all of you amazing people here. And I hope you all have an amazing day, and that hopefully there was something, even if you already knew it, that you can be more cognizant of. All right, let's see who can raid out to. Let's go say hi to Salacious Rat. Again, stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves. Again, drink lots of water. Let's not hear ourselves. Drink lots of water, and take care of yourselves just as much mentally as you do physically. And I appreciate you all being here.